Welcome to just another real estate show. I am Maylene,
And I'm Jen.
and today we're going to share with you the real secrets of Florida marital status and real estate. This
And all
is a
the fun
topic
things that go on behind it, Maylene, because you know there's
everyone needs to know. Everyone needs to know. And I'm just going to start it off with this, right? In Florida, if you are married, what is mine, and what is yours is also mine, including real estate. So,
hold
if
on.
you're
And when we wait, let's make one thing clear though. And when we say married, we mean that there's actual documentation saying that you're married, like a marriage license. You're married like for real, not because you lived together for 20 years. That does not count,
yes,
at least
guys.
not in Florida.
No, and in Florida, that 7 year, because I believe there's like a statute, right? Like if you've been together for like 7 years, supposedly you're like
It's
legally
called
married.
common law marriage. That doesn't exist
Yeah.
here.
That in Florida is not considered a marital status for real estate purposes, right? And this is such an important topic. So I'm gonna let Jen start this one out and I'll kind of finish it, kind of put our thoughts into it because it's an exciting one and a very important one. So
Okay, so when you're married, like meaning for real married, and you're gonna take out a loan, they ask you if you're married, if you're single, there's a reason for that. So title companies also send out little forms for you guys to fill out that ask certain questions. Are you married? Are you single? So forth and so on. There's a reason for that. My favorite is when they put married on the loan application and they put single on the title info sheet. Either you're married on both or you're single on both. And I think this happens a lot in South Florida specifically because we do have a lot of foreigners come in and they think just because they live together, they're married. And it doesn't work that way. You're either married or you're not. And I love it when people call me and they're like, well, I want to do a quick claim deed to take off my wife or my
oh
husband.
yeah, those are the
My
best.
my first question is why? I want to know why. What is the purpose of this? Because if the purpose of this is, oh, I'm taking him out because this is my house, again, Florida law, if you're married and you're on the deed as husband and wife and you're married, legally married, you can take him out if you want or take her out if you want, but they still have rights to the property. And our documentation has to match the lender's documentation. So if you're married with the lender, you're married with us. So you got to tread carefully, and we get this all the time. It's they contradict each other. Mortgage has them as single, we have them as married. And guess what? If you're married and you're buying a homestead property, homestead law kicks in, meaning your spouse has to sign the mortgage whether they're on the loan or not,
Yeah.
because it's a homestead property. So they have to sign acknowledging that you guys are taking out a mortgage and for your homestead, meaning you're going to live there. So
Yeah.
yes, if you're married and you're buying a house that you're gonna live in, your spouse has to come and sign. And you can't just remove somebody off a title because you think that the property belongs to you. That's
Right.
gonna
Or another great scenario, and I'm sure you get these gens a lot too, where I'll have a client and then they'll say, well, the buyer wants to, she wants to buy a property, but she's still married. Can she buy without her husband? The answer is no, they are still legally married. So if they're still legally married, the spouse or soon to be ex-husband or soon to be ex-wife would still need to sign the mortgage documents. There is no, can I get a letter from an attorney saying that, the ex
oh, my
soon to be
favorite. We're
spouse,
legally separated.
yeah, we're legally separated, or is there a letter that, the attorney can write so that the spouse doesn't have to come in and sign at closing? We're here to tell you, no, there is no such letter. The only thing that a divorce attorney can do is they can create what's called the property settlement agreement. In that property settlement agreement, they can come into terms and saying, yeah, you know what, the she is buying a property and they're getting divorced and he will not take claims of it in the future. But that doesn't stop the fact that both husband and wife at that current moment, what their current legal status is, have to sign at closing. I'll give you a perfect example. When I purchased my first condo, and this is gonna sound crazy, but it just is what it is. It took me quite some time to get divorced. It took me about maybe a good year.
Mila, hello. Me
Me
too.
too. Me too. The point is that because my divorce was taking so long, and it wasn't because of anything, I think it was just pure laziness, like not
Yeah,
wanting to
mine too was
go to
pure
the
laziness.
courthouse and do it. You're like, why do I gotta do it? Whatever, we're fine. It's all
I'm
good.
not planning on getting married anytime soon again, so it doesn't
Exactly. Who
matter.
cares?
I
But
know
when
I was on that plan too, by the way.
yeah, I think most of us are at some point in time. But when it came down to buying my first condo, it literally hit me where I was like, oh my gosh, I can't buy my place. I have to legitimately go through this entire divorce process, because if I buy my condo, I'm still a married woman. And I will be damned if I am going to buy my condo and my soon to be ex husband is going to have any rights into it. And not only that, now I got to talk to this person and say, hey, listen, I'm so sorry things didn't work out between us, but I'm going to buy a condo and I need you to sign the mortgage for me. But I don't want you to have any rights for it because of whatever XYZ reason, right? It's a very uncomfortable topic of conversation to even have. So I legitimately had to get divorced, wait for my divorce to be finalized to then say, okay, I'm ready to go purchase my condo, because now I'm purchasing it as a single woman and it's mine. So that's just a little example I always like to give to kind of put things into perspective, where again, in Florida, you're married or you're divorced or you're a
Right.
widow.
There is no in between. Oh, but I was separated for like 10 plus years. But if I had to go buy a house at that moment, I was still technically a married woman. And what you said, if it's my homestead, my spouse has to sign. If it's an investment property, the spouse doesn't have to sign, but you're still gonna be on there as a married person.
Yeah.
So you have to kind of do your due diligence and kind of get your paperwork in order, because this is what I tell people. All right, now you guys are getting along, everything is great, you guys are separated, he knows you're buying a place, or she knows you're buying a place, and they know they got to sign the mortgage, and they're not going to do anything with that property. That property is mine. Something happens, you go to a divorce attorney, divorce attorneys are like, what? No, you have rights to that. Or the friend comes and starts, oh, don't be stupid, you have you're entitled to half, which technically you are, because anything that you buy, any assets that you buy married, it's a marital asset. So I always tell people, when I get questions like that, you need to contact an attorney that practices family law to figure out what rights or what don't rights or do. And I always tell them everything in writing, because your friends today, tomorrow you might be too happy, and that other person is upset because you're happy and they're miserable, and then they're gonna want to kill your joy, because
Like
that's how.
it's like you marry an angelfish and then you divorce a great white shark.
Why always say you don't know anybody until you leave them? Just saying.
True.
That's when the claws come out. And especially when it comes to money. I mean, that's just anybody, family members, you know, like the whole probate thing. I always tell people how you hold title is important, because at the end of the day, everybody's relative. When you have a relative and then money's involved, claws come out. Like, it's just human nature. Unfortunately, that's the way it goes. So I'm always tell people to be proactive, get all your ducks in a row, figure it out before you get yourself into a mess. So yes, if you're married, you're married. Is there ways around it? Yes, there are. But if you're buying your homestead property and you're going to be there, whatever, Jennifer Argano as a married woman, then there's a husband involved and they might have legal rights to it. So I'm going to get something filled out. So he kind of says, no, I'm not going to have any rights to that property. You get it in writing through an attorney. Please don't do it like on a handwritten paper, sign here and have your friend notarize it. That's not going to work. There's a Spanish saying, lo barato sale caro. Everybody's trying to
Bueno,
tell you
bonito,
the cheapest way
barato.
possible.
Bueno, bonito, barato, pero lo barato
Yeah,
sale
but then
caro.
what happens? Then it doesn't work, and then it backfires and blows up in your face.
Yeah.
Then,
And I think the most important thing too is, so there are no surprises at closing. If you're married, I mean, your spouse has to come and sign. I mean, I don't know how many closings we've been to in the history of being a closer and title insurance, where I'm looking at documents and I'm saying, okay, well, where's your spouse? Your spouse has to sign. What do you mean? Nobody told me my spouse has to be here. You're married. Yes, your spouse has to be here. They're on the mortgage documents, right? So
I
I
always
think,
tell my realtors to always check with the lender
yeah,
because we don't know as a title company, we don't know if it's a homestead or not.
yeah.
Well, we do on our info sheet, but sometimes they don't fill it out.
No.
They leave things in blank, but we won't know certain things or if the spouse has to sign until we get the package. And then some lenders, especially out of state lenders, don't know that in Florida, if it's a homestead property, primary residence, your spouse has to sign. And then we've had to send packages back because they have to add the husband or wife to the mortgage to sign. So it's
Yeah.
very important to communicate to your lender if you are legally married. And even if you're separate, oh, we're legally separated, that doesn't exist. You're either
Yeah.
married or not. So, and if you are divorced and you're selling, we do need a marital settlement agreement showing who's
Yeah.
getting what. Maybe the husband's not getting anything and everything's going to the wife, or maybe it's 30-70 or whatever, but we need the marital settlement agreement. So when it comes to disperse, we disperse accordingly to what they've agreed on. So
And that's
there's
the other thing.
paperwork involved.
You want to make sure that if you are selling a property and you are going through a divorce, that your title company has that marital status. Because God forbid, if there is something in that marital agreement that is missed, that's a huge lawsuit. That's a huge problem later on, and especially during your divorce. So you always want to make sure that if you are married and you are going through a divorce, or a separation, let your title company know, let your agents know, and agents ask questions, man. Like, let's get to the
I
question.
know how many
Right?
times have I had how many times have I had a closing that, well, just happened to me recently, that they're like, oh, by the way, I just found out that my buyers are getting divorced or my sellers are getting divorced. And I'm like, okay, but if you're both on title, technically we have to go 50-50 on the funds. I can't just send all the funds to one person and not to the other person. It's got to go out to both of them. Unless we have something stipulating and they both agree on whatever, we're going to do it like this, XYZ. But communication is a big thing. And I know that some agents are like, oh, surprise. I didn't know. I'm like, how do you not know?
I don't think that was a surprise. I think that
Like,
was
how do you not know? Or they don't tell anybody that the spouse is here. Okay, story time. So at this one time at Beck Camp, so this one time I had a closing. They rushed the closing. We had to close. It was like a Friday, like at 6-7 o'clock. We're like, okay, let's do this. Let's close. The husband gets there without the wife. And I'm like, we had told the realtor that, listen, the spouse has to sign. The wife was in Colombia.
oh my gosh, Colombia.
So she wasn't even in the country. She was
Wasn't
out
even
of the
here.
country. And that gets a little bit more complicated because there's paperwork that has to be notarized. So
Yeah.
they rushed this closing on a Friday to close. And it couldn't close that day because we needed the spouse, and the spouse was actually coming back during the weekend. So she wouldn't even be able to sign till Monday. So they did all the rush, but what was it? And then I asked the realtor, did you know she wasn't here? And she told me, yeah. I go, you didn't communicate that to the
Oh,
lender or to
oh,
us. You know what I mean? That we need to know things, it's a team effort. I always tell people it takes a tribe to close this
yeah.
transaction, so the communication
It's
lines
like
have to
five
be open.
villages.
Yeah. And let me tell you, if you're married, let's flip it. If you're married and you're selling and it's a homestead property, guess who has to sign the deed?
Yep, both of them. Both have to sign the deed. Not only one person can sign the deed, they both have to sign the deed because they're both on title and they're both legally married, right? So here's another twist to that, right? In order for a couple, right, a married couple, for one person to only be the decider, and the person that's allowed to sell the property and the person allowed to take 100% of the profits, or just sign over the deed, that has to be stipulated in a final divorce. And not only that, there has to be a quick claim deed done. There's a lot of times where we've done deals where there has been a divorce, right? And we have a property settlement agreement. We pull title, and our title report is going to tell us, okay, this is the last known deed. This is the last recording of the deed. This is who your seller is right now. There have been times where we'll go on and we'll say to the agent, hey, I need to know if XYZ person is going to be here for signing, or hey, the title's reflecting two people, you have one person on the contract, and then the sellers are getting pissed off. Like, they're getting mad at us, like, no, that's impossible, we got
I've
a
been
divorce
divorced for years.
Yeah, it's like, wait, hold on, time out, take a deep breath. Did you guys ever record a quick claim deed? And that is usually the missing piece. Like, a lot of times they go through the divorce and they don't do the quick claim deed.
Yes, they don't do the extra step.
Title.
Yeah,
So
they don't do the extra step to
they
remove the
don't
person
do
on
it.
title, and then you sell it 6-7 years later, and that person is still entitled. They have to still sign the deed.
Right. Or my favorite, that they don't read. Let's just call it what it is. Oh, well, my attorney was supposed to handle it. Does it say on your property settlement agreement that your attorney was going to handle it? And I don't know of any divorce attorney.
I'm sorry, but I want to know if my attorney is going to handle something, I'm going to make sure it got handled.
Exactly. Like, come
oh,
on.
you didn't follow up or check to see if I got handled. I mean, this is the deed to your house.
Listen,
That piece of paper is the ownership to that large investment that you have. And then now you need him to close. Now, what if you don't have kids with the person? So, sometimes it's a clean break. I'm out.
Yeah.
And then the guy has a girlfriend living in another state. Now you got to hunt this guy down. I would die. There's no way.
Well, I had a deal where that exactly happened. Do you want to know what they did? They got the quick claim deed done. They did it. But I guess, I'm not sure how or why, or I don't know. I guess they figured, okay, yeah, I have the quick claim deed. It's done. It's signed. It was never recorded. They had gotten divorced 11 years ago before she decided to sell the house. In order to sell that house, she legit had to contact her ex-husband and say, I need you to redo this entire deed because the county did not accept a deed to be recorded with 11 years backdated.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, they didn't allow it. And we took it, we sent it in, and they're like, no, it's too old. Like, it has to be redone. And of course, it's very specific, and it's very what's the word I'm trying to use? It's very sensitive information. It's based off of a divorce. I mean, you're transferring title to a property. The county doesn't know any better. In their minds, they used to seeing things that are updated, not 11 years ago. So it's important to read, the divorce documents. It's important, for agents to ask the right questions. Are you married? What's your status? Is your spouse going to be here? Let them know, hey, I'm separated. Okay, well, separation is not a legal status in the state of Florida. It may be in whatever state or country you're coming from or you're at, but it's not here. So I think we covered a lot of great information, Jen. So I'm really excited to hear some feedback. So guys, thank you so much for tuning in. Please comment, like, share, subscribe. We're super
Share your
excited.
stories. If you guys want something for us to talk about, let us know. We got stories for days.
If there is a specific topic you guys want a little more, real talk live on, let Jen or myself know, and we'd be happy to answer. So peace out, guys.
Thanks, guys. Have a great one. Bye.